Welcome. Wherever you're listening from, settle in. Close your eyes, if you like, and imagine the sound of waves. Not crashing, not violent, but rhythmic, slow. A lullaby of water against wood. We are not stepping into the halls of empires tonight. Not into marble columns or candlelit cathedrals. No, tonight you drift far from the land. Out into the great blue canvas of the Pacific. A sea so wide, so open, that even time itself seems to exhale. Tonight we travel into memory, into the forgotten knowledge of Polynesian navigators. Men who crossed thousands of miles of open ocean without maps, without compasses, without written words, but not without direction. They followed the stars. They read the swells. They listened to birds, watched the flight of clouds, felt the pulse of the sea beneath their feet. And tonight, so will we. You will hear of canoes that moved like living things, of chants whispered across generations, of statues carved with silent purpose, and of feasts where lineage flowed like coconut wine. We begin, as they once did, beneath the quiet moonlight in the cradle of an outrigger canoe. Imagine yourself seated low in a carved canoe, its wooden hull curved and gentle, smoothed by wind, time, and the patient hands of elders. It rocks softly on a silken sea. Barely a ripple disturbs the glassy surface. Above you, the moon hangs heavy, silver, and round, casting a pathway of light that shimmers all the way to the horizon. You are not alone. Beside you, another navigator kneels. Older, skin weathered by salt and years, eyes bright with quiet knowledge. He does not speak often. Instead, he listens not to words, but to the ocean. The voyage began before dawn. Not a journey of conquest or riches, but a passage of trust, trust in memory, trust in the sea. For the Polynesians, navigation was not simply travel. It was ceremony. It was inheritance. It was communion with ancestor Shu, once sailed under these same stars. You learn to watch the ripples, to feel the swells as they come not in chaos, but in patterned rhythm. One set of waves moves from the east. Another, older swell presses from the south. Where they cross, the canoe trembles in a subtle way, and the navigator nods. This, too, is a sign. There is no need for ink, no parchment. The map is all around you. It lives in the sky, in the tides, in the flight of a frigate bird returning to shore. Food is shared in silence. Fish wrapped in banana leaves, cooked with heated stones and cooled beneath damp cloth. You eat slowly, the flavor touched by salt and smoke. Even the meals carry tradition. A reminder that sustenance is not only for the body, but for memory, a thread that connects you to those who voyaged before. Later, the chants begin. Low, repetitive, ancient. Soon not to entertain, but to remember. Each note carries a story. Each verse is a path across the water. There is one for traveling west, one for when the swells change, one for when the birds fly too low. They do not shout these chants. They hum them like prayers, like lullabies. The canoe drifts on. The stars rise slowly. Orion, the Southern Cross. Lines of navigation not drawn, but remembered. Each star rises at a predictable point on the horizon. And when it does, it marks direction. This knowledge is called wayfinding. But to those within the culture, it is not a system. It is a language, a sacred inheritance. And as the night deepens, you feel that inheritance pressing close, like a warm wind on your neck or the sound of drums in the distance. You are no longer just floating. You are being guided. Somewhere far ahead, a reef will break the ocean's rhythm. Palm trees will rise like green fingers from blue water. Smoke will curl upward into the sky. But that is still far off. For now, there is only this moment, the moonlight, the gentle lapping of water, the quiet, persistent chants of your ancestors. The journey continues. And from here, We now shift our gaze from the collective rhythm of the voyage to a single figure, one navigator whose story carries the legacy of 1,000 journeys. When you are ready, we will meet the last great wayfinder. The sea, vast as it is, has always had keepers. Not guardians in the modern sense, but interpreters. Men who could look upon the horizon and see not emptiness, but a web of paths laid out by stars, swells, and silence. Tonight, we drift closer to one such man. His name was Mau Pialag. Born in 1932 on the tiny Micronesian island of Sarawak, a coral speck cradled in the western Pacific. Mo was among the last traditionally trained wayfinders navigators who relied not on instruments, but on the inherited knowledge of the sea. Imagine him as a child, barefoot on the white sands of Sarawak. The island is no more than a mile across, its edges kissed by steady surf, its palms leaning like listeners to the whispering wind. In the stillness of night, Mo would lie on his back beneath the stars, his elders pointing upward, teaching him not to admire the constellations, but to read them. The sky was not for wonder, it was for direction. Each star had a name. Each had a rising point, a setting point. Each told a story of where to go, of when to change course, of what ones would come. By age 6, Mo was chosen. The elders saw something, not eagerness, but attunement, a stillness, a quiet ear for the rhythms others could not hear. He was taken to the sea for long, patient instruction. Days spent watching wave patterns, nights spent memorizing stars. The training was not rushed. It took years. It could not be shortened. To be a Palu, a master navigator, was not simply to know, it was to embody the knowledge. He learned the feel of different swells. One from the northeast, born of typhoons. Another from the south, born of trade winds. He learned to use his own body, his outstretched hand, the angle of his fist against the horizon, as measuring tools. And he learned to trust his skin, his breath, his heartbeat, to tell him what the canoe could not say aloud. He became fluent in a language spoken by no man, only by the world. But time moves differently on small islands. And beyond the reef, the modern world pressed in. By the mid-20th century, satellites and radar had replaced stars. Charts had replaced chance, and the ancient knowledge of navigation was dying. But Mo, he remembered. And then he taught again. In the 1970s, a group of Hawaiian cultural historians, long separated from their own Polynesian navigation traditions, built a canoe called Hokulai. It was to sail from Hawaii to Tahiti, a voyage of over 2,500 miles across open ocean. But they had no navigator. No one in Hawaii, I remembered how. So they turned to Mo. He had never sailed that route before. He had never seen maps of those waters, but he accepted. He stood barefoot on the deck of a canoe not his own, and read the sea like scripture. He watched the stars, the clouds, the birds. He tasted the wind. He felt the swell lines. And after 34 days at sea, with no compass, no GPS, no instruments of any kind, he led Hakol safely to Tahiti. It was not only a voyage, but a revival. That single journey restored pride, memory, and tradition to a people who feared it was all forgotten. In the decades that followed, Mo continued to teach. He trained a new generation of navigators from Hawaii, Micronesia, New Zealand, and beyond. But he was not loud. He never sought recognition. He spoke softly. He taught slowly. He walked barefoot, even in airports. Always close to the ground, always part of the earth and sea. And when he passed away in 2010, the ocean remembered him, just as he had remembered it. Today, the navigators he trained still sail. They do not bring Mao's teachings as passengers. They carry them as marrow, as bloodline, as compass. And in the quiet moments, beneath the stars, with no land in sight, they feel what he felt. the sea breathing beneath the boat, the wind whispering the way forward, the rhythm of a wisdom that never really died. Let us now turn from this living thread of navigation to the silent witnesses of another Pacific mystery. From voyaging canoes to stone giants carved with wide, unblinking eyes, we drift now to Rapa Nui and the mystery of the moai. Imagine yourself now stepping onto a wind-brushed island, isolated, quiet, a dot in the Pacific more than 2,000 miles from the nearest major landmass. This is Rapa Nui, more commonly known as Easter Island. But here, far from that European given name, the people simply called it Te Pito o Te Henua, the navel of the world. And scattered across this navel, as if grown from the volcanic soil itself, stand nearly 900 statues, the moai. They rise from grassy slopes and rocky plains, some towering over 30 feet, others buried to their shoulders, their heads tilted ever so slightly, as if still listening for a voice lost to time. You may know the outline: broad nose, heavy brow, elongated ears. But standing before them, one might feel not simply awe, but an almost uncomfortable quiet, as if the stones remember. But what exactly do they remember? The truth is, we do not fully know. Let us return, gently, to the earliest days of Rapa Nui. It is believed that Polynesian settlers arrived around 1200 CE, perhaps earlier, their great canoes crossing thousands of miles of open ocean, with little more than the stars and swell patterns to guide them. They brought with them taro, sweet potato, chickens, and their gods. They found an island rich in possibilities, with fertile volcanic soil and forests of towering palms. And they built society, organized around clans, each with its own chief and its own sacred territory. But central to their way of life was ancestor worship. And from this reverence for lineage rose the moai, each one a stylized representation of a revered ancestor, a chief, a leader, someone whose mana, or spiritual power, still pulsed through the bones of the land. But the moai were not merely statues. They were thought to embody presence. Eyes once inlaid with coral, now long lost, gave the statues their sight, allowing them to see into the village. Watching, protecting, guiding. Imagine a village nestled in a valley, a moai standing with its back to the sea, its face turned toward the people, a quiet overseer. They were raised atop ahu stone platforms that served as both foundations and altars, places of both reverence and ritual. And here lies a curious detail. The moai, as massive as they were, had to be moved. Some were quarried at the volcanic crater of Rano Raraku, where unfinished figures still lie, half buried in the slopes. From there, the statues were transported, sometimes miles away, across rugged terrain. But how? Many theories have come and gone, each more cautious than the last. Logs rolled beneath them, ropes pulled by hundreds. Or, as local tradition softly suggests, they walked. Not literally, but with a carefully choreographed rocking motion, a team of rope pullers shifting the great stones side to side, the moai shuffling upright toward their destination, as if guided by the spirit within. It is a story some archaeologists have recreated successfully, proving that perhaps, just perhaps, the islanders did not deforest the land in haste or ruin, but in devotion. Still, the history is layered. As time passed, Rapa Nui faced profound change. Resources dwindled. Palm forests, once thick, vanished. The population may have grown too large. Clan rivalries intensified. And the moai, once revered, began to fall. Some were toppled deliberately. Others cracked from age and weather. Still others, nearly complete, remained frozen mid-journey in the quarry, as if the island simply stopped. In the 18th century, European ships arrived, and they too brought change. Disease, conflict, and devastating waves of slave raids that carried away a generation of knowledge. Christian missionaries came soon after, and in their zeal they saw in the moai not sacred history, but idolatry. Many platforms were abandoned, oral traditions silenced, and yet the moai endured. Even in stillness, they whisper. Today, the people of Rapa Nui, the descendants of those who first raised the stones, are reviving the stories, restoring the platforms, and remembering the names. Archaeologists, too, continue to study the moai, finding subtle markings, pigments, and even buried bodies beneath some of the statues, perhaps indicating ritual offerings. But perhaps the greatest mystery remains in the presence itself. Why do the moai move us? Is it their scale, their silence, or something deeper, the echo of a civilization that knew the stars, the sea, and the soul of stone? Perhaps it is enough that they simply are, unexplained, unyielding, unforgettable. As the Pacific winds sigh over the hills of Rapa Nui, you might imagine one more whisper from the past. Not a word, but a reminder. That memory, even when unspoken, can live in stone. Let us now turn from sacred stone to sacred gathering, from statues that see to people who speak. We drift now to the Feast of the Chiefs, a moment of firelight, coconut oil, and divine lineage. The sun has set. You are seated on woven mats beneath a thatched roof, as flickering torches dance shadows on polished bodies glistening with coconut oil. Around you, a circle of elders, chiefs, children, and dancers, the community gathered not in haste, but in ritual. This is not merely a meal, but a feast, a ceremony of abundance, gratitude, and memory. The Feast of the Chiefs. And though it differs across islands, from Tahiti to Samoa, from Hawaii to Tonga, the meaning remains constant, a celebration of mana, of hierarchy, of sacred connection. Imagine a table, not of wood, but of banana leaves, laden with foods that tell a story off both sea and land. There is yunyu, an earth oven, dug into the soil earlier in the day, where hot stones slow-roasted pigs, breadfruit, and taro wrapped in leaves, the steam rich and earthy. There are baskets of fresh-caught fish, their skins still glistening, marinated in citrus and coconut cream. There are poi, fermented and mashed, and salted seaweed wrapped around crab. Everything is shared, but nothing is casual. This is a hierarchical world, and the seating reflects it. The ariki, or paramount chief, sits elevated slightly beneath a canopy. His lineage traces not merely to human ancestors, but to gods, to Tangaroa, to Te, to the divine forces that shape ocean and sky. He does not eat first. Instead, he is served with ceremony, a bowl of kava perhaps, passed with bowed heads, its bitter taste binding the moment in reverence. The air is thick with ritual. Young men, bare-chested and adorned with garlands, present each dish with chants, their feet padding across packed earth in rhythmic steps. Drums beat low and slow, a heartbeat beneath the hum of the evening, and then the storytelling begins. Not loud, not performed with bravado, but measured, woven like the mats beneath you. An elder clears his throat, his voice gravelly but warm, and he begins a tale of Maui pulling the islands from the sea, or of a great voyage, or of a battle where a warrior's cleverness saved a generation. The children lean forward, eyes wide. The adults nod slowly, some mouthing the words, as if the stories live not only in the mouth, but in the bones. You may notice that the line between myth and history here is soft, blurred, and lovingly preserved. Genealogies are chanted Wakapapa in Bori, a recitation that links every listener to their ancestors, to their chiefs, and ultimately to the gods. To speak one's ancestry here is not boastful. It is sacred. It reminds the people that they do not float alone on the sea of time, but are held securely in a net of remembrance. The feasting continues long into the night. There is no rush. Food is not merely sustenance. It is a binding agent, like story, like song. And when the embers fade and the last drumbeat dissolves into the darkness, there remains a hush, a fullness, not just of belly, but of spirit. And in that hush, the people drift off to sleep beneath the same stars that their ancestors once followed across the ocean's endless canvas. We have reached the end of our voyage. From the cool rise before dawn on an outrigger canoe, to the quiet presence of an elder telling stories by firelight. But before we part, let us reflect softly on what we have seen. In this journey across the Pacific, we traced lives that moved with rhythm and with reverence, guided by stars, informed by memory, rooted in the sea and sky. We woke beside fishermen and followed them through their humble rituals. We stood beside the last great navigator, his eyes reading the waves like scripture. We walked among silent stone faces, feeling the hum of something older than words. And we sat with chiefs and children alike, bathed in story and smoke and ancestral pride. The world we glimpsed is gone in some ways, its forests changed, its rituals adapted, its whispers sometimes hard to hear. But the essence remains, in chants still sung, canoes still carved, and children who still learn the paths of their people. Perhaps tonight, as you close your eyes, you carry a piece of this distant world with you, the slow rhythm of waves, the soft murmur of legends, the watchful gaze of stone, and the warmth of firelight on dark skin. Let the sea cradle your thoughts. Let the stars above you shimmer without urgency. And if sleep takes you now, let it carry you gently, as a canoe gliding silently, over moonlit water, guided by memory toward dawn. Good night, and may your dreams be long and peaceful.